Yeah,
we're doing it.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
When you hear that clap, it's like all of a sudden it's like
The energy in the room.
it's like when one of those jock jams comes on. Bum ba dum dum dum. Hey, bum ba dum bum. You guys have been to a sporting event.
I've been to like
once-
2 in my
Once
life.
or twice.
Yeah.
So
No, I have.
welcome to Up-to-Date Cinephile.
Hello.
I'm Ben.
I'm Kyle, and this
We've
is
got
our
We've
guest.
Hi.
got Thurlene. This is our first guest on Up-to-Date Cinephile. She's a very up-to-date cinephile.
Am I?
You
Thank
see so
you.
many. I feel like the first thing I knew about you seen like 7 movies in a day.
Yep.
Yeah, I will do that.
You'd show up with like a hobo bindle at the theater and just like you're just gonna live there for a day.
She actually pays for all those movies.
I do pay for
that's,
movies.
Yeah, that was stupid of you.
I've been doing it since I was a kid, just
Yeah.
like I get my movie money and then I go to the ArcLight.
I mean
Rest in
that's
peace.
like $100 day. For
My
to
mom
see
would my
4
mom would drop
movies.
me off. She would like tell them, "Hey, she can watch rated R movies. I do not care."
Would she give you? She give you like an adult card, like a laminated card,
And then they were like,
signed by her.
"Who's gonna turn away money?" So they're like, "Fuck it, let this child watch an R."
What's funny is you still look like you might not be old enough to see an R-rated movie without parental.
It's true.
I'm like 10
You have a
years
youthful
into
glow.
that. I'm
You have a
10 years
youthful-
into.
I would
seeing
card. I
R-rated
would
movies.
card you at the movies when I were.
I would never card
Thank
anyone
you.
at the movies. Nobody's ever paid me enough. Although I did once card to buy a beer. I did once card Will.i.am. So there you go.
Did he like that? Was he flattered?
He pointed at his face, but then he kind of laughed and showed it to me.
Okay.
He's like, "I'm this guy." I'm like,
I feel like because women are
I actually
usually
didn't.
flattered.
I actually didn't really know right away that it was him. But then I looked at him like, "Oh yeah, that's my humps guy." Shout out to Will.i.am. Come on the pod. We're talking about 2 movies today. We're talking about Encanto and we're talking about House of Gucci.
Yeah.
And we're gonna start. So, Thurlene, I don't know if you know this. We do a little spoiler-free review first,
Okay.
and then
Spoiler
we go
full.
spoiler full.
Okay.
So we will begin with Encanto. We will begin with our spoiler-free review. We will begin with me because I've already said I had the least to say. I like this movie. It's lovely. Going to you, Thurlene.
I like this movie, but I wish it was a pinch longer.
A little bit longer. I'm always calling for movies to be shorter. We will see that later.
Yeah.
We will see later a call for a movie to be significantly shorter.
Significantly. Yeah.
Like if we could lop
agree
off
with
a
you.
whole limb, right? But so you want it to be longer. Interesting. It was quite short. It did feel like they could have had another.
I think
it did
5
feel a
to
little
10 minutes
abbreviated
more would have.
in maybe the second to third act. Like the late part of the movie seemed to come
The
together.
third act comes together miraculously, seamlessly. Well.
They're doing magic, Kyle.
It's magic.
Well, I mean,
They got
when
a
we get into
candle.
our spoiler stuff, I have a lot to say about this magic concept that I don't really
Okay,
care for.
so not.
Kyle's
I
not here
mean,
for the
I don't
magic.
think saying they're doing magic is this.
No,
I feel
that's
like
in the
our rule
trailer.
of thumb is
Yeah.
if it's in the trailer, it's not a spoiler.
No.
They're doing magic, and magic is doing it. Magic is happening. I think that's right. I mean, so what can we say about this movie from a spoiler-free context? I mean, once again, sort of Disney following the lead of other Disney, Pixar,
Yes,
dipping
it's
into
true.
Latin American culture. Makes a lot of sense for business reasons as well as aesthetic
Yeah.
reasons, right? You get this beautiful palette of color. You get the classic focus on like large extended families. I mean, I'll leave it to other people to comment on the sort of cultural.
I mean, I can go. I mean, it's not my culture, but I think the strength of the movie is in getting into the familial dynamics
Yeah.
of this culture, which I think a lot of people will respond positively well to, because. And they're not. It's not just a glossy view of family. I mean, the whole point of the movie is about familial expectation, generational expectation, generational gap, but also displacement. There's a whole theme of displacement, trying to find a safe haven, trying to find a safe place, and it's kind of a. I think that speaks very wonderfully to the full experience what a lot of immigrants have, and finding a place and feeling secure. And what goes into that and the fears, anxieties of holding that in place. So I think Encanto, its strength is in, because I mean, if you look at the trailer, it's this is not necessarily a spoiler, just giving more full information. It seems like it's an adventure film, but it's very intimate. It's very intimate. It's a very intimate. This is the family. You never leave this house.
Yeah, and the house is a character. It's very much an important. It's maybe. It's certainly one of the most important characters in the movie.
Yes.
The house, right?
Yeah.
And you know.
And so, what can be said spoiler free? Well, it's a musical, and so this is where my criticisms come in. I didn't care much for the music. I did not walk out humming any of these tunes. I felt like Lin-Manuel Miranda was right, as Katie said, was writing with a gun to his head. Like, it felt like a very forced creative project on his end.
Are we breaking news? Lin-Manuel Miranda, at gunpoint, wrote the song to Encanto.
I have a
we
little
need to go viral.
confession
Please.
regarding that. Sorry guys, as a Lin fan too, I don't think he writes well when he does Disney movies.
Linsanity. We're talking Linsanity.
Because I was not in love with the music in Moana. And I was not in love with the music.
Ooh, I love that big set piece song that I think he might sing into in Moana, the one where they're on the boat. I love that song.
I do prefer the music of Moana.
I prefer it, but I don't.
I love that song. That song's a bop.
But I don't love Moana's music like I do with other Disney movies, and like it makes me worry.
Well, maybe that's the difference. I don't love a lot of Disney music.
That's probably why.
Did he also write the music to Mary Poppins Returns?
He did.
Man, he's got a really good cushy Disney gig.
And he's doing Little Mermaid.
Oh wow.
Okay, so like what is your platonic ideal of Disney movie music? Like, if you want to watch, what's in the sweet spot for?
What's in the sweet spot?
What's in the sweet
for me?
Anything Alan Menken.
The sweet core.
Alan Menken.
I didn't say Kyle. I said Thurlene. We can get to you in a second, Kyle. Thurlene is definitely our resident. We all are Disney lovers to one extent or another, I think. But Thurlene, I'm going to say, is the biggest Disney file.
I think Disney, where it shines, is a good villain number, personally.
Yeah.
I think if the villain number is good, then the rest of it tends to be great.
Obviously, the villain in this movie being misunderstanding.
Yeah. So like
the villain is bad vibes.
I mean,
it's a bad. That's the
bad vibes in a. Oh, I don't want to spoil anything.
Well, we know that there's going to be bad vibes.
Bad vibes.
I don't think bad vibes is
bad vibes in a.
You got to have some bad vibes to have the good vibes.
Yes.
Right? Otherwise, they're just vibes.
Yeah. And, like, this one kind of just lacks that. I mean, I guess there's one song that can be considered the villain song in the movie.
But see, again, like, I love the Maui song in Moana. I think that's a great, number.
I like the Maui song in Moana.
I like the Moana. Moana is one of my... Now, we got to separate Disney and Pixar, right?
Yes.
Because Pixar makes better movies.
I don't know. Their latest trailer is suggesting not so much.
Is that Lightyear?
The Red Panda one.
I have not. I have no opinion about that.
I love Red Panda. So.
But like, I mean, like Coco is a better movie than Encanto.
Obviously,
right?
Yeah.
Hands down.
And Coco, well, the stories are sort of similar. I mean, Coco is visually much more interesting, right?
Yes.
Like the underworld that they create is very compelling, right? The equivalent here, I guess, would be The House, which is cool and has some like gags, but is nowhere near as kind of artistically realized or visually compelling as this entire universe that Pixar creates. I would say the stories are actually pretty similar. I mean, and they tap into this Latin American theme, which is a theme in other cultures too. I think we're sort of the outliers, white Americans. Well, two of us are white Americans. Having like these atomized families. I mean, a lot of the world, people live in big extended families, don't leave the home till they marry, and so they but both movies tap into that vein of the big, multi-generational family and how complex those relationships can be, and the sort of pressures that run through them. But Of course, I drew us away from the question of the music. So, good villain. Like, what are your top tier villain numbers in Disney movies? Like, you don't have to pick just one, but like, what are some that you're like, this is the platonic ideal?
Be Prepared from The Lion King. Poor Unfortunate Souls from The Little Mermaid.
Yeah. Well, you're going straight to the sort of second golden age,
They really
right?
are. I guess.
Which
let
is
me,
your.
let me think of modern, like closer. I'm trying to think of newer Disney movies.
But again, the newer Disney movies have veered away from the idea of villains.
Yeah,
per se.
they have.
They are trying to have a more sanitized world for.
Do
kids.
either of the Frozen movies have like a villain number?
No, because the villain number is one of deception, and it's one of like love.
Yeah.
Like they're singing
And
together and they love each other.
But I'm so angry about Frozen. Sorry, guys. I know we're veering off the topic.
No, this is good. This is good.
Elsa was originally supposed to be the villain in that movie, and that was like the original concept.
They can't do that. They're gonna sell those dresses.
I mean,
They're gonna sell those figures, those plushes.
I would have bought an Elsa dress if she were a villain if I were a child.
Yeah, but Thurlene, you are like a very special person. Yeah. That's why we bring you on. We don't bring on basic people. You are a bad bee, right? You're a bad bee, but like most people, and when they're 6, are not like, yes, I want to be Maleficent. I want to be.
Why not? Though?
I mean, that's a. We
as
could
someone
talk.
who wanted to be Maleficent as a kid.
It's funny. I'm going to give you all a little backstage knowledge since you've come here, you watch our show. I was the one who said we should do Encanto Force because we're going to have more to say about Gucci. And, of course, we're going to get into, like, Thurlene's childhood and stuff like that. So we're going to be on Encanto for, like, 2.5 hours. Right? It's going to become, like, a group therapy session. So I'm always wrong. Don't ever listen to me again. Don't ever listen to me again. Yeah, I mean, how was the music in this? I guess I liked it at the time. Like, I enjoyed it. I thought the number that the strong sister had was good.
That is one of the better songs.
I liked that one because that is kind of the villain number in a sense.
Yeah.
She's not the villain, but she's kind of singing about the villain.
Yeah, but
right.
The weight.
Yes. The sort of abstract villain.
One thing that I really did like about the music, and I guess this just goes with casting, is I really liked that the singers didn't have the traditional Disney voice. I don't know, there was something really exciting about that to me.
Yes.
Because I mean, as much as they put Stephanie Beatrice in musicals, she doesn't have what most people consider like a traditional singing.
I think also
voice.
to the benefit of it. I think it gives such a naturalism, and like you can really connect with that because you know when you hear Idina Menzel, or I don't know how John Travolta pronounced her name, I forget
Adela
that joke.
Dazeem.
Adela Dazeem. But like you're like, oh, that's like a goddess.
Yeah,
like, she's a goddess. But but this one
when I hear Stephanie, I'm like, oh, that's a real person singing a song.
Yes.
And I think that's lovely
in my vocal range.
Yes, I mean that's one. Yeah, Idina Menzel is like a old school. Like she can belt it out. She can hit the notes right that nobody else can hit. Well, this was also, I feel like, as far as he's gone, and maybe as far as Disney will go at this moment, or at least in this musical, into like sort of a hip hop-ish. I mean, there were moments of kind of rapping.
Yeah, some.
You know,
the height
rap adjacent kind of singing.
How they utilize the wording, and it's very hyper stylized, and a lot of words within a short time frame, especially in the opening song, the kind of expository introduction to Encanto and what this all is.
Yes. Our info dump song.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I suppose with the other song with the sister, which again, some of my problems with the movie is repetition, is because then you have the beautiful sister and she sings, but it's also the same concept. It's just a reiteration of the same problem, is that they have this weight of the family on them, the expectation. But I liked the little tune of We Don't Talk About Bruno.
Yeah, I do like that one.
I thought that was an interesting, thing about family and secrets and what's openly known, but also, it's like you don't talk about Voldemort.
Yeah. Yes. That's.
We don't talk about the Auntie Stephanie and her friend.
So
Yes,
yes,
yeah.
her friend who's always at
Who's always
family
at
gatherings.
home and they live together. And
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like we're sort of verging into spoilers territory.
Yeah, we can.
I mean, I liked it. I feel like I don't know. It's a Disney
Well,
movie.
so-
You know what it is.
Well, actually, let me ask you, because you have a child, and you saw it with your child.
She was scared at parts of it.
Oh, interesting.
Carolina. We're just talking about the love of my life here, Carolina, little Carolina. So it's hard for me to be objective about her. She is a sensitive soul. And I made the mistake of seeing it in Dolby. It was very loud, so that probably had an effect.
Okay.
But I mean, there are her thing is, once she's seen a movie once, it's all fine. But the first time, she's very afraid that something terrible is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so she'll cover her ears and kind of scrunch up. But I was very proud of her because she kept on coming back. She left the theater 3 or 4 times, but she kept on coming back. I mean, she saw 10 minutes at summer camp with Space Jam 2, and she just peaced out for the whole movie. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. She's like, I don't need the goon squad in my life, right? So I mean, so that was her experience. But past that, I mean, she was like, "Oh, it was good, but it was spooky."
Were there a lot of kids in the theater with you?
There were definitely some kids in the theater.
Did it, because that's the thing. I mean, these are not necessarily made for us. These are made
Yes.
for children.
Speak for yourself.
Obviously, there needs to be some sort of element for adults to enjoy them, and so I think as a, this kind of, and once we get into spoiler territory, we talk about the message. I don't particularly like the message of this movie, but then again, for children, I think it's fine. It's thin enough, it's meaningful enough, it hits the right notes, pun intended, to get you to see that family is about not what you put upon yourself, but about acceptance.
Yeah.
And so I think in that way, this is a lovely movie. I just think when you really get down into the nitty gritty, I have some immense problems with it.
Okay. Well, I mean, here's what I'll say. Disney's got their formula. I find the animated formula to be less grating than the Marvel formulas, which
I agree.
Which I'm sort of past. What it happens, you have someone who's kind of in but not all the way in, who has to work their way in. The animation is state of the art. Looks great. It's not innovative in the way that at least the best of the Pixar stuff is, but
No.
that's not Disney. They're not innovators in that way.
No.
Right?
There's a uniformity. in their works.
They're creating the like I said, it's the state of the art animation experience that is meant to kind of pitch very much. It's very middlebrow, right? It's pitching very much to, here's something we'll all kind of like, and here's something we could all kind of enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is that. And I'll also sort of go back to the theme that I kind of harped on a little bit in King Richard. I'm pro any movie that kind of speaks to a different audience, right? I'm pro any movie that speaks to, just a racially diverse, ethnically diverse audience, because, everyone's got kids and they want their kids to see people who look like them and have families like them on the screen. I'm 100% in favor of that, right? And I think that, this movie comes by it honestly, right? Like I said, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody has voiced any sort of problems with the way that this movie depicts kind of Latin American culture, but
No, I don't.
I think it's a warm and honest depiction, right? And it'll hit for people, and that's good. I mean, I'm in favor of that. I think that it's good. It's if you're gonna have this giant sort of monster of commercial filmmaking, right? Which Disney absolutely is. It's the Goliath that bestrides the media world. Well, you might as well use some of that to make sure that everyone at least can own a couple of DVDs with people that they can relate to.
Yeah. I mean,
right? So
this is
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah,
right?
and I mean, just for the sake of the entire cast is South American. I mean, they are from Latin America.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that they are hyper attuned, right, to having a portrayal that people will feel comfortable with.
Well, and it's interesting because, like, speaking of that uniformity, that Disney's known for, whether it be Marvel, whether it be animation, what I think is lovely about the animation is that they focus on these different worlds. You got, like, I don't know, what is it, the Netherlands or for Frozen? I don't know where it's necessarily supposed to be.
Yeah, I would say it's like Sweden or the
up
Netherlands.
there. And then you have Moana in like Hawaii, and then you have this, and you feel like they take place in the same universe, in the same world, and that they are just different adventures and focuses in this animation world that they have, which I think is nice.
You know what Disney is? Disney movies are like a new Toyota Camry or something like that. They're the peak of the middle, like they're the best thing you can get. Or Honda Civic, right? They're like the best thing you can get within that bracket. Yeah. They're as well made as anything. They're you know what they are. They're going to do exactly what you want them to do. They're not going to like blow your mind or make you think, "Oh my God, like what's that?" Right? They're just like a brand new Honda Civic. Which is a great car.
Yeah, no, it's efficient. It works, and
it'll go forever. Anyone can
comfortable.
Anyone can drive it, right? It'll get you where you want to go.
Yeah,
it's a predictable, professional experience.
Yeah, no. So
right.
I think that's what I don't want to get to when we get into spoilers.
Let's just do it. We've got our review.
Yeah,
let's do spoiler. We're spoiling this.
We're spoiling the movie. Here we go.
So ultimately, my issue with Encanto comes down to the end. The end is really,
rushed.
I think, it's not even the rush part. It's where it ends. It's the message behind it. I think it almost ruins the entire good intentions of the entire movie. Because the good intentions here are a cultural immersion, which I think is successful in the colors, the aesthetics. The familial dynamics, I think, is where it disrupts at the end of where the end disrupts that message, because it is really it's about this displacement. I mean, it opens with their abuela, on the run. They're being displaced. They're being attacked. And so through that rage, you find that it's through rage, through pain, through suffering that it ignites.
Oh, and they also go back to the Bambi's mom, right? They just can't do Bambi's mom ever enough.
No.
So instead of Bambi's mom, it's Abuelo.
It's Abuelo.
Abuelo stands in for Bambi's mom. Someone's got to die, right? Someone's got to die to kick it off.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to end with her death, honestly.
With Abuela?
Yes.
Dying? Well, and so maybe we can get
her
there.
Her spirit had to feed the magic candle.
That's what I kind of thought.
The sacrifice.
Her sacrifice would have made a new candle or something because she realized how she's fucking up her family.
But again, there's no villain per se.
Yeah.
So it could be. So it is all about. Abuela is technically the villain,
but they can't. But she can't be the villain.
She can't.
No, because
they're not going to make her. The evil stepmother or Maleficent.
No. They're not. Because can I just say, that bitch don't have powers either.
No.
Oh, shots fired.
I'm so sorry. That made me so angry. I'm just what's the entire... Sorry, I bombarded your...
No.
I was just the entire movie, I'm just okay, Abuela, what can you do? You hold a fucking candle entire time.
Well, and this makes sense, though. But this makes sense. So this is... I will say about the powers... I think it's really fascinating, actually, when you really dig into the powers, that you see Bruno... They basically suggest that these powers are filtered by your personality before you get your powers.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because the young kid... Antonio gets his powers, and they're like, "Oh, you're an animal person.
So
you clearly
he's
love
Dr.
animals."
Doolittle.
Yeah.
And he becomes Dr. Doolittle. Cute. And so interesting, because then you look at all the personalities and then you have to ask the question: are they the personalities that there are? Is it a combination of they naturally came to those gifts, or they naturally came to those proclivities? Or is it family expectation, such as the sisters being the beautiful one, being the strong one? And this, psychologically speaking, I do think this is an interesting layer of the film, that Bruno probably had OCD, probably had anxiety. And so it's filtered. He becomes kind of somebody who wants the future to be set, and so it's kind of like a curse power because of his mental
he can't deal with uncertainty.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not mental illness, but it's mental whatever it is.
It's anxiety, right? We are all familiar with. Yeah, you don't know what the future holds, and you can't handle it, and so you freak out.
Yeah, and so it's interesting that the psychological layer is all of these people, and so that they have this.
So I've got a guess about where you're going. Let me see if I'm wrong.
So you have a guess where I'm going.
I have a guess about your criticism about the end.
Even though Abuela doesn't have powers, I think that actually is important because it's this idea of preserving the sanctuary that was created, preserving the familial safety that she is putting upon. This is where the villain quality comes in. It's not a villain per se, but it is this. She's putting upon the family an expectation. They're all trying to do something for Abuela, for the family, not necessarily for themselves, not something natural. And so the ending is supposed to have Abuela come to understand, because I think Maribel's a great character. I think it's a fantastic character. Played wonderfully. I think oriented wonderfully. And so her not having powers is an interesting dynamic. Obviously, everyone knows that from the trailer. But I think how it's played, it's even more powerful in the movie because it is something that's revealed. But then you get the sense that she's letting down the family because there's nothing so obviously special about her. And so that's where the message comes in, is that she is special because she can orient and move through this and understand the world in her own way rather than through the way that the family has put upon an expectation.
Yeah.
So when the end comes around and Abuela's like, well, I understand, and it's a little rushed, but again, I think it would ultimately get to this place anyway. Yeah. She has to come to understanding. She has to understand, Maribel, her station, her position, and then understand what she was doing to her kids, doing to her grandchildren, doing to her great-grandchildren, and what that impact has. And so the ultimate message of the movie is supposed to be, we all understand each other. It's about us and family. We need to allow this to grow naturally. And then they all get their powers back.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was right this time. Sometimes I'm wrong.
I really was just like, oh, so they're all going to be normal. That's so nice.
Well, and then it plays into question because then the community comes in, which there's a weird dynamic there.
Yes, you know, it's actually reminiscent of another one of our favorite movies this year. Eternals. Yeah, there's Druig. That's the Druig colony.
Yeah.
Out there in Brazil or wherever
and they're
Druig
controlling
is.
Them. Yeah.
Wherever Druig is chilling.
Honestly, wherever that colony is, sign me up. I'm down.
So,
well, we do like Barry Keoghan.
Coogan.
It's Keoghan.
Nobody knows how to say his name.
Keoghan.
Barry. Let's
I
call
know
him
how
Barry.
to say it. Name.
Barry.
He's
we love you, Barry.
Irish. He's Welsh.
He is Irish.
Keoghan. Okay, yeah.
It's
Keoghan would probably be.
We love that guy.
I love him. Yeah,
I love
even
that
though
man.
I say his name entirely wrong.
No, but it's not. It's like Gaelic or some shit. We're not gonna worry about that.
I mean, I should know that. My first name's Gaelic, so.
Kai.
I love trying to pronounce Irish names. I make it like a point.
Yeah,
like
it's good.
Dono Gleason, Saoirse Ronan.
You know, David Lynch calls Kyle MacLachlan Kale because Dino De Laurentiis couldn't pronounce his name.
Oh, that's funny.
So when they were making Dune, he'd always call him Kale. Kale. And so now Lynch calls him Kale. I should call you Kale. Shout out to David Lynch. We love you. We'll mention him once every pod. So yeah, I mean, whatever. Like, I mean, let's be honest. Like, it's all a little fashy, right? I mean, but all these things are a little fashy. Like, yeah, we need some heroes. Like that's like what could be the message of all these movies? We need some heroes.
Well,
can't trust the plebes.
Well, so that ultimately is where my criticism comes in. Is at what point was it creative to let them have their powers back, or what expectation Disney had to have their powers
What if they had
back?
different powers? That would have been interesting.
Yeah,
Or no power. Yeah, no,
It should be no powers,
Yeah.
or everybody gets
Yeah,
powers.
I thought she was going to get a power when she put the door in. She was finally
yeah.
going to get some power or something, and I was just like, oh. And so then I was like, oh, so none of them are getting powers, but then they all got their fucking powers back, and I'm like, this is.
It's a weird message.
She has to go through this shit again? Like.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, and this is overestimating people, I guess, that they would not have powers at the end.
Yeah.
That it would be like, oh, we just got to do this like normal ass people.
Well, and you're stronger together. You don't need the powers. You don't
Yeah.
need the weight of expectation on individuals like holding up the family physically. Or,
Yeah, because you're just gonna have to go back. Like what is the, you know, what's going to be the net effect of it? Things are just going to go back to the way they were,
Yeah.
and you know, next year or the year after that, you're going to feel the same burden that you felt before, right? Which, I mean, in a way is an honest reflection of how family actually works, because the same problems just keep recurring,
That's
right?
true.
Like that's the way it
true.
actually goes. But that's not, you know, art that's trying to reckon with that doesn't package it as a happy ending.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, you know,
Yes.
we've reverted back to a previous state of slightly less dysfunction after a flare-up of major dysfunction. Now we're back to just our minor dysfunction. I mean, that is the functioning of families I'm familiar with, I'll say. Make of that what you will. But it's not something to be celebrated.
Yeah.
Right? It's something to be acknowledged and reckoned with, right?
Yeah.
And in a way that the movie is honest in the sense that like the best you can hope for in real life is to get a little bit better after you go through the bad part. Like, okay, we learned something. Not everything's great, but we learned something, and we won't fuck up in the same way next time, right?
Yeah.
We'll fuck up in a new way. We won't fuck up in the old way. That's the optimal scenario, is fucking up a little bit less the next time around. But you wouldn't say that the movie is carrying forth that message,
No.
right?
No. Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, it just sat weird with me. And I felt like the maintaining of the powers at the end felt disingenuous to what the movie was ultimately going to try and say about them all coming together. And I just felt like it was Disney. It's like, no, we all want superpowers. Don't take it. It's the opposite message of Marvel. And they can't have that. They can't have them undermining their other franchise by having the attitude that there needs to be special people. Excuse me. There needs to be superpowers, people to save us. And ultimately, I thought it would have landed immensely well with me, and I think more audiences. I think you would carry away this idea that you can do this. You know, you can have your safe place with people. You don't need the superpowers. You don't need heightened personalities to save the family.
All you need is family.
All you need is a family, and you can do this together, and you don't need special superpowers. More Maribels, you know, would be a lovely place.
This is so egalitarian from you.
Yeah, it
I'm
is.
winning you over slowly
Just
to
winning
the cause.
very slowly, very slowly. But I think that's where you get a moral and capable message for children and for families that I think this movie again it undermines itself in a way that only I would really latch on to, or like a minority of people, because ultimately it is a lovely, colorful, dynamic film. I do appreciate the attention to detail that they put into the characterizations, their psychoanalysis of where their powers come from, why they feel they need to be this way.
Kyle, this is what's magical about you. Is you have this gruff exterior, but you're not fooling me.
Not fooling me either.
Because you have hope, right? You have hope. I have no hope, not in this movie, right? Because I know, like, look, there's nothing interesting to say anymore about heroes.
Yeah.
Superheroes, magical heroes. You can do the normal story where they're just awesome and they kick ass. We've done that a million times. You can do the anti-hero, they're fucked up, they're crazy story. We've done that one a bunch of times too. The best one is the comic book version of Watchmen, not the movie. You can do that, and then what do? Well, you just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. Heroes are great. We need them. We need people who are better than us, right? We need our betters to intercede on our behalf and save us.
Yeah.
And it's fucked up. It's a fucked up narrative, and I don't like it. But I have no expectation of it going away or not being appealing to people, because it's such the groove, the path is very well tread, right? That's the smooth path.
Yeah.
Any other path over here, that's not so smooth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, I'll always lean towards that. The path of least resistance is not necessarily the one that I would go for in a creative sense. And obviously, there's a lot more financial burden and financial expectation on these things, so that you have to kind of go in the easy road.
Yeah. They're very smooth.
Yeah.
They're meant to pass through your system without causing you any intestinal distress.
And yet, a simple change.
It's like a smooth experience.
Very, very
like
smooth.
A shake.
Yes.
Just like a smooth shake.
Yes, very
just passes
goes down very smoothly. I just a simple change.
I just want to keep on this riff to keep Thurlene's face just getting more and more.
Do you not like certain words like smooth?
I don't know,
like moist or
I like repeated no, like over and over, and with eye contact. I guess I don't.
I guess it's not. I'm sorry about that.
It's just awoken something in me, and I'm like, I guess I.
Okay, so
I don't have much more to say.
Well, we're gonna give our guest Thurlene the last Encanto word.
Yeah.
We're giving me the fuck. I don't have much to say about this movie either. Other than the length, I feel like the length. That was my problem. The length of this movie.
Just fill out that third act more. Because it is a very quick realization.
It is. It's super quick to the point where I was just because again I thought it was going to be because most Disney movies are like an adventure movie, and like I feel like most of their trailers make it seem like they're always going to be adventure movies. I had that problem with Brave. Like, it looked like she was going on a really big adventure, and it really wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, the adventure here is what? They go to the river, the butterflies come, everything is good again.
Everything's great again.
That was the adventure. It was more of a stroll.
They went to their backyard, and they were like,
a stroll.
This is the same stakes as like Brave. Yeah, absolutely. This is not Moana. Moana is very adventurous. It is going on.
It's not Raya. It's not Raya and the Last Dragon. It is.
I didn't see that one actually. Raya and the Last Dragon.
That's good. That's good. I liked Raya.
I will see it before the end of the year. I will do that.
That was my first movie back in theaters with.
Oh well.
My buddy.
Mine was.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, no, nice.
Shout out to us.
Shout out to the Nicole Kidman AMC in Porter Ranch. Thank you.
That's right.
Is that where they filmed it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can still. I sense her presence when I walk in there. It's like, when you go into the Emperor's Cave, in Coruscant, right? You walk in, you feel or the cave on what is the plan? Dagobah. The cave on Dagobah. You can feel her.
I also know they were not gonna do this, but I just feel like Bella got off easy.
Very easy.
Like, I was just like, we're just going to forgive her for years of trauma on 3 generations of people. We're just gonna be like, it's all good because she. And again, I wanted her to die.
It's like the old SNL skit. The lost ending to It's a Wonderful Life, where they go and they beat the shit out of what's his name?
Mr. Potter.
Mr. Potter.
So let's go get him.
Like a post-credit scene where they do something bad to him. They put her in they force her to live with the rats.
An old folks home.
In Bruno's. Like they force her to Bruno's.
I don't know. I thought through her death. I thought
hovel.
Through her death, the family would grow stronger together. I thought that was going to be the ending of this movie.
So dark.
Is that dark?
Yeah.
No. A redemptive death that's not. Well, that's not uncommon in this movie.
I really thought they were going to be like.
You're supposed to understand her fear. You're supposed to understand.
Okay, I understand her fear. I really do. Like, that was really sad. I get that.
Bruno coming into the fold so smoothly is a good word. I didn't like that. I was like, they really outcasted this guy, and he just loves you, and
then you guys are just like, oh, Bruno, you're back.
You're right, though. It is abuse. There's a lot of mental abuse.
But that's the thing is, in these movies, the optimal amount of conflict is like the minimal amount, right? Like just enough to make it work.
Like, I know this is for kids, but I'm just like, Abuela needs to go. I'm so sorry.
Like you couldn't have a scene where Bruno like loses his shit at Abuela, just like you old
or a
dirty
monster,
bitch, right?
You old hag.
You can't do that.
You can't.
Even though that would have happened. Right?
Thurlene's describing what would become the Aztec or the Inca version of Midsummer, like where they change entirely, and we got to sacrifice the old person at the end of.
I mean, not sacrifice
every couple of years, just so we can.
I thought they were going to go to the river, and I thought Abuela was going to sacrifice herself because she realized she's such a toxic person in her family, and then they realized all their problems stemmed from this woman and her expectations of them, and they are better without her. Because they are honestly better without that woman in their life.
And you could do a scene like the end of Ocean's 11 where she drowns and they just stand in front of the water and kind of slowly trickle away.
And then the
candle, the death of their tyrant.
The candle reignites and the house gets built back up again.
Oh, it's such an interesting thing, because I think culturally, I think they would say that they would agree with you in the sense that everything that was wrong stems from Abuela, the fears, anxieties that she had, the expectations, and it comes off as totalitarian. But they would also say we're nothing without them.
Yeah. There's all kinds of cultures that reify like tough love of elders, right?
Yes.
True,
Yeah.
but
like the kids, they need the whatever, spare the rod, spoil the child kind of shit.
That goes against the short that they showed at the beginning of this movie, which is ending that trauma.
Yes, it's all about breaking the cycle. Yes, and realizing that
the
maybe you could talk to your kid instead of just knocking them around a bit.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Was an interesting short.
Okay,
yes.
So we're gonna go from a movie that is very formulaic in some ways to a movie that has no obvious formula at all.
No,
a movie that
defies it.
The formula left the building.
That we could not, that cannot be contained in any genre, in any maybe even in the concept of a film, right? A movie so unconventional on some level that I'm excited to have this conversation just to figure it out, to unpack. Like it's like I would say that House of Gucci is like if I gave you a box full of random puzzle pieces and told you put this together,
and you do it.
And you kind of do it, but just randomly selected from many puzzles. And I told you in some sort of a maybe it's like you're Brie Larson. I got you locked up somewhere, and I force you to do puzzles with random pieces. I keep telling you it's a real puzzle, like some sort of a torture. Although I didn't find this movie torturous to watch in the way that I found other movies torturous to watch. I found it amazing on some level to watch. Kind of like I was just seeing something very interesting.
You just gotta let it take you over.
But we're talking about House of Gucci. I mean, what a movie!
What a movie!
What a movie!
Those are the words I would use. What a movie!
Not even a movie. What a thing!
What an experience!
What an objet d'art, right? I don't even know what to call it.
What a time!
Is it a movie? I guess it like all great works of contemporary art, it asks us even how to think of it. It itself is a question. It poses a question. What am I exactly? And it's not like a question with a clear answer. It's sort of for you to answer, right? And what I would answer is that this is like, how would I describe this at a high level of abstraction? It is like a mad pastiche of of someone's fever dream. Like it's like someone who was just out of their mind on a sort of mix of substances, or maybe in the throes of a very like an illness, when you get a really bad fever and you start to see things, just shouting out ideas. And then all of them happen.
Yes.
All of them are committed to film.
Yes, in all of its disparateness and all of its fragmented tone, it is a bizarre film to experience.
I can't. Someone else start talking, because I could riff on this, but I'm just gonna keep saying the same thing.
I'll tell you this: I am. You're talking about it in the kind of the highfalutin art world sort of interpretation. I don't even think it musters that credibility. Like I think it's.
I think
mess.
we're beyond good and evil at this point with this movie. I'm gonna say.
I don't. So I'll let Thurlene, because I know Thurlene has takes, and that's why we invited her. We specifically invited her because she has takes on House of Gucci. But I just want to say, like, what you described is correct, and it's going to be dependent on how you land in your experience. Whether you say this is this, I mean, because it is disparate. It's high camp fun at some points. It's weird, like lurching biography on another, and then it shifts focus wildly from character to character that you don't necessarily understand what you're watching. You don't necessarily understand the point of what you're watching. You don't understand if they sympathize or empathize with Maurizio because of his fate. You don't necessarily understand if it's Patrizia and her perspective, that whether they're trying to articulate whether she was a gold digger or if she was in love, or it's a mixture of both. You don't get any answers out of this movie. And so for me,
this is what makes it great.
I think you need to have a semblance of perspective, and so for me, I think it gets lost in its weirdness. It gets lost in its inability to choose one path, choose a perspective, choose a direction, and so it flails. And so for me, while I agree, I don't think it's an unenjoyable watch. It is thoroughly confusing. And I'm more negative on it because of that, and I can explain when we get into spoilers section. But I'm more negative about the experience because I think it allows itself to not actually be what it wants to be. It wants. I think this could have been an insane camp fun ride, and yet it only has bits of that. It only has pieces of that. And I really wish it submitted to itself. It submitted to the over-the-top nature. I mean, borderline offensive performances at the center of it. But if you're gonna borderline be offensive, might as well commit to it. Might as well just go all in.
Borderline, like this movie has like borderline personality disorder.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Borderline. This is a BPD movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. And so for me, it wants to be this thing, this on the nose satirical take on the fashion world, on the people who get involved, on what it does to people, whether they are capable to be in the world, such as an outsider coming in, or if they're in the world and they are just a freaking loser like Paolo Gucci. Like it is just such an interesting blend.
Prayers up for the realest motherfucker.
Honestly,
it's such an interesting thing. But Thurlene, we invited you on, and I want to get so you what is it about you liked your experience with Gucci?
I mean, I like my experience doing anything. I could have fun anywhere. Take me to see a stick in the mud, and I will hype that shit up. Do I love this movie? Yes. Is it a good movie? No.
Yeah, that's isn't that interesting? It's like a bad movie that you can enjoy. Like I do think that's what it is.
But take us into the mind of Thurlene. Like what? Like, because I think maybe I'm gonna be in the middle on this, but like take me into the experience.
The experience
of watching this movie as Thurlene.
Oh God. Okay, little backstory. I am obsessed with Patrizia Reggiano. Like before this.
Yes,
movie happened.
everything I knew about this woman prior to this was from you.
I made jokes that this movie was my Joker because I love Patrizia so much. I know she is an awful person. I get that. Also, can I spoil that? Is that a spoiler? Because it's like real.
Well, but honestly,
Let's just, I mean, whatever. Look,
Yeah.
Spoilers start now in 5, 4, 3.
Maurizio had that shit coming to him for what he did to his wife. I am so sorry. I will stand by her to the end of time.
But also, I mean, I guess everyone, I mean, it happened, so I don't know how.
yeah,
It's like it's a little bit like saying the Titanic thing.
Yeah,
so.
I was just.
well, I mean, but it is interesting. It is an interesting question. I think it's a legitimate one on a spoiler nature. How many people are really know about Versace or Gucci assassinations?
I mean,
Like,
it is
it's-
wild that like multiple of these people just got like taken out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But
although I think it was more for what he did as Kylo Ren, really. He had to
Yeah.
pay the price.
But I know the story. I love the story. I think it's insane. And they don't even like they take out so much that like happened in real life that they just didn't. I guess it didn't work cinematically.
It is true. The fact is far more wild than the fiction that they
Yeah,
portrayed in
the
this
real
movie.
story is like even crazier. I thought they were gonna do some of her time in prison, which is insane. I thought they were gonna do some like after prison time because she's out.
She volunteered to stay in.
Yeah,
She's
I've never
crazy.
worked a day in my life, and I don't plan on starting now. Is a quote from Patrizia Reggiano herself. Had a ferret in prison. No one talks about her pet ferret. No one we don't get to know that she actually got money from the Gucci estate, and she still gets money from the Gucci estate to this day.
Well, and it's an interesting kind of assessment on how do you adapt a story, because obviously, I mean, I don't know if you followed Tom Ford's reaction to this movie, but
Did you read
Tom,
his piece in Airmail?
Yeah,
I didn't
It's-
read
it's
it.
interesting.
But
It's
I
good.
got little
'Cause
snippets.
Tom Ford was like, Maurizio never shook my hand after a show. He was already bought out by the time I took over, but they make it a whole big thing in the film. And I mean, he admits, he's like, well, when you get into like the nitty gritty of timeline, I mean, obviously when you're telling movies, there's cheats and there's shortenings and that
How
makes sense.
many movies is this movie?
Like 5.
Infinite?
5.
Infinite?
Yes, yeah.
Infinite.
like
Well, you
5.
guys both alighted on 5, so
I
that's
think 5.
interesting.
They also had 2 children together. One daughter is they're like, nah, just
I
one.
mean, this is this movie, the whole middle section could really go.
There's a big part at the end that can go.
But like, what's
there's
so weird
a
is
big part of the end that should have been added.
But like, to me, like the murder felt just so tacked on at the end.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of stuff happens, like, oh, we shoot him, and oh, they go to
Yeah,
prison.
'cause-
I mean, you do get one pretty hilarious scene with them hiring the hitman, which is like the one moment where we kind of let Selma Hayek be awesome.
Which is like going back to
Why,
what
how
Kyle
many movies
said.
do we have to watch with Selma Hayek being not underutilized?
Well, it's
we
funny,
love you, Selma
and
Hayek.
it's so interesting.
They make more movies around Selma Hayek.
I mean, her casting is kind of apropos. She's married to the current.
I know.
head of Gucci.
I saw that, which is hilarious.
But because like it went in with the knowledge with the murder that you know this story well enough. Like you know this story. You know he gets shot. So like let's gloss over that. But like again, how many people know about Versace and Gucci?
Yeah, but I mean, like, it just kind of happened. Like, okay, that happened.
Boom boom bang bang. Pow pow motherfucker.
Like that whole part in the middle when they get the tax thing and they show up and they go to St. Moritz and that other less attractive woman gets involved somehow. That just went on forever. That just went on forever to know, just like, and you've got like, and meanwhile you've got Adam Driver trying to be understated. You've got Jeremy Irons being a little bit.
I think you're giving Adam Driver too much credit. I think he was phoning this in.
Well, but like, so here's the thing, right? What the fuck are you doing making a movie where people speak English in bad Italian accents?
know.
How is
Okay,
that a good
can
idea?
I just-
get some fucking Italians in there. They're speaking Italian.
Yeah.
I could read a fucking subtitle, but of course we can't make this $100 million whatever. I don't know how much they spent to make this movie. Too much.
Probably. Yeah.
Two things though.
They should have gotten just some fucking random Italians who made it for $1 million.
I think I said that to Kyle that this would have benefited by being an Italian movie. Like I would have definitely
Absolutely.
watched it if it was like set in Milan and it was just an Italian
You can't
film.
make a subtitle movie that has like 5
Yeah, I know.
A-list
Yeah,
actors,
you
right?
can't.
I mean,
you can't do that.
it.
But
Yeah.
also, in defense of Lady Gaga's dialect in that movie, I don't think she was doing an Italian accent.
She's doing Russian.
I think she was doing Patrizia's dialect, which very much sounds like that. Which I don't think she was trying to sound Italian. I think she was just trying to sound as good as she can as Patrizia.
It does get interesting when you get into very particular
Yeah.
interpretations of character. I mean, we talked about that with King Richard. I mean, Richard Williams' dialect is very unique. It's a blend of a million different things that...
Yes, but he speaks English.
Yeah, but he speaks English.
In the movie I Did Life.
I will agree.
I just feel like I just was sitting there watching, like, thinking, like, you've just got these people speaking in this, I would say, panoply of voices. None of, I mean, they all, I mean, you've got Jared Leto sounding like Mario,
Yeah.
like Super Mario.
Honestly, just
he
put
literally speaks like fucking Super Mario.
Oh, Papa!
Oh
It's
god!
a she.
Oh god!
Yeah.
I cannot get over it.
Look at my line,
I'm sorry,
Papa.
like you know who Jared Leto reminded me of? I could not, when I saw him, I could not stop thinking of the character Fat Bastard. Like he had such heavy fat bastard. It's okay.
I thought there was a back. I thought there was a back.
No, I stole that back from me.
So, like, I mean, literally, like, he's got that weird sort of uncanny valley fat suit thing going on where he doesn't look quite right. Like, it just never looks quite right. He speaks, and he's so Fat Bastard this movie. And he's just, like, parading through this movie, being fucking ridiculous.
I love
just
Jared Leto in
ridiculous.
this movie. He's so
I don't even know what is going on.
Also-
Like they should, like, there's this scene kind of where Al Pacino and him are just down on their luck at, like, his apartment that is just like that will be studied in film school, I think,
It's
till the end of
surrealist.
time. Just
Yeah,
like,
it's
just like
bizarre.
they're just kicking around doing their ridiculous voice. It's just like, I just don't.
It's also
It's
okay.
just so bizarre.
I sold my shares.
I sold my shares, Papa. He has more children than Paolo. Again, they just like picked and choose which members of the Gucci family they wanted
God, I mean,
to include in this.
So
Maybe some members asked not to be included. I don't really.
Maybe.
and
But-
what's funny, right, is that so here's the thing about Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott is just like Disney is this for animated. He's the Honda Civic of directors. Like, he's very technically savvy. He knows
is.
how to do what he wants to do. They let him keep on making these massive motion pictures because he will do like a competent job. But so far as I can tell, he has no real artistic juice in the tank.
Yeah.
He's like a very sort of technical like, he can do it, and the movie looks like good so far as it goes. But it's just like you just have this very sort of professional but uninspired directorial template being put across a movie that just goes in a million different directions, story-wise, none of which are really captured.
Yeah.
Like, I could imagine a very, like, here's a movie I would think would be entertaining. Cut out do a caper movie based on the murder, shoot it kind of handheld, like, think of like Ocean's 12, right? That's a fun movie. I'd watch that movie.
Which Ocean's 12 is based off of like some the Italian heist film.
Yeah. Do it like that, right? That's a fun movie with where you could be campy, have a kind of stylistic coherence to it, and tell like a tight story that begins, middles, ends in a reasonable way, right? And you could get that fun third act with her in prison. Like, that's a good movie. There's some stuff in the opening of the movie that, like, maybe is good, like kind of like a romance, but is she just a gold digger story? Like I said, the middle could just be lopped out. Like, you could just take the middle of this movie out. But instead, they just kind of do some of everything. Honestly,
yeah.
it's kind of like our criticism of Belfast in a weird way.
Yeah.
Where there's just a bunch of ideas, and they just kind of throw them all forward, and you're kind of like, well,
There you go.
that was something.
Yeah. And it's go ahead.
Yeah, I just think the problem with this is that Ridley Scott is the director, and it's like what you get when a straight white old man tries to do camp, and he's just like, I think.
But honestly, who is Ridley Scott as a director anymore?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
how,
I mean,
true.
like, what's his last? Like, is Gladiator like the last?
no, I mean, American Gangster was probably.
Okay.
I
I
like.
mean,
you
I
know?
liked The Last Duel.
Yeah, the last. I
Which
mean,
you're one of the millennials who saw it, who didn't sit
Yeah,
on your ass and watch
just-
TikToks
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Whatever. Well, he
Whatever
was
he's
he was
blaming.
bitching about something
Yeah.
about how people wouldn't go see it.
I think
I
it
did
is
not see the last
appropriate.
Duel.
I think it is appropriate to bring up The Last Duel because he does have 2 movies out this year. Because
Both
The Last
starring Adam
Duel,
Driver.
although being humorless to a large degree,
I think Matt Damon looks pretty funny in that movie.
he does. He's got like some mullet. Yeah, I mean it's,
the medieval mullet.
Medieval mullet. It is interesting because there are some criticisms to lob at Last Duel, but I think it understands its psychosexual dynamics and its medieval times far more appropriately than
Is there a joust? Do you get a meal?
you do get a joust. You do
Oh,
get
good,
a joust.
good.
It's a Rashomon storyline that builds up to the joust.
Yeah.
It's all the disparate.
That's cool. That's like if
effects.
you went to medieval times, but you had like a pre-show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you
Yeah.
learned about each night.
Yeah.
You did. Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
had a different take on why they had to
Yeah.
It's
joust.
wild. It's wild. The
I
interpretations.
really liked that movie.
I will watch it.
It's pretty good.
I mean, maybe I just like Adam Driver being shitty to women. I don't know.
He's real
They sh-
awful.
yeah.
In that movie.
In both of these movies.
Yeah. Oh, and both. Yeah, both. I mean, Maurizio.
He
I
is
think
he
is
is sort
worse.
of carving out a type. It might not be the type you want.
Maurizio was a piece
no.
of shit.
But it
No
is interesting
R.I.P.
bringing up Ridley Scott because
Rest in pain.
Ridley Scott, I think he formulated himself as a filmmaker back in the 70s when he did commercials with Tony.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Yeah.
they became Americanized real quick. They became commercial and stylized. And so as a technician, as a filmmaker, that's his strength. And so it suits his abilities when he finds good material. And I think actually that's the script that's bad here. The camp is not necessarily as existent as it should be in the script. Based off of the book, it's Sarah Gay Forden's book.
Yeah.
And Becky Johnson and Roberto Bentivegna. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but I don't think the script actually is formulated to accentuate the campiness, the satire, the ridiculousness of this story, which I think that's the main problem. It deviates, it tries to be serious, it tries to understand or sympathize with Maurizio just a little bit, which I think is its mistake. I think the movie opens with Patrizia, and you should stay with her to get involved in this family of eccentrics, this family of
Well, it's
awful...
funny, right? And Ford's thesis is they just had to keep all this shit in and do all these scenes to make all these A-list actors happy.
Yeah.
Which may or may not be true, right? But it tracks. Like it certainly is a very plausible explanation because a lot of this shit, yeah, she should be in every scene. It should be about
leaves
her.
for 45 minutes.
It should be about her, like because that's what's interesting.
Yeah.
She's what's compelling.
Yeah.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Her story is what's compelling. The other shit, none of it is compelling.
Yeah.
Aldo is not compelling. Paolo is not compelling.
I think is it
Not,
Rodolfo?
well, not in this movie, right?
Not in this movie.
I mean,
Is
this movie,
Is it Rodolfo? Is the
Jeremy Irons?
brother?
Yeah, I
Jeremy
mean,
Yeah.
he-
I do think he's compelling.
yeah, but he would be a part of that story.
Yes.
One of
But
my
all the
favorite shots
Aldo
of all-
Paolo shit would go,
yes,
right?
The
The
main
Paolo
focus
shit
of-
would go completely.
Yeah.
And Aldo would be like, yes, like Aldo is whatever Obi-Wan Kenobi or whatever. He leads him back in, right? But that would be it. And then you cut out all this shit with this Paolo shit, which is just like, it's this B plot that just like swallows the movie in the middle.
It also takes away from what is essentially, because I understand the deviation of focusing on Maurizio because he's not married to his wife, he's not interacting with his wife, but he's doing exactly what his wife advised and wanted, and I get but it fails. The movie fails in orienting you in that story. When he turns to Jack Houston's character and is like, "My wife warned me about you," and it's like, when, like, how, and you lose sight of the fact that it was Patrizia who could have guided him in these waters, and ultimately may have succeeded had he kept her around. And so, the movie almost fails because you don't get enough of that. You don't get enough of that proof.
Well, also, and I'd be interested to hear what you think about this, Thurlene. The sort of one of the ironies of the movie is that the person who's right about the business is Aldo ultimately, because the reason Gucci is a $60 billion company or whatever is because they sell handbags and wallets and perfume. It's not haute couture, right?
No.
Tom Ford is not a moneymaker. He's a marketing strategy. Like, if you're Gucci or Louis, any of the Prada, whatever, you're making money selling luxury goods that are at the within the reach of at least like middle class people as a splurge, not because you're selling like haute couture, right? And so Aldo it's just kind of a throwaway line, like, this is how we make our money. But he's absolutely correct about what those businesses would become, right?
Yeah.
Which are brands that would use high fashion as a marketing strategy loss leader to sell, small goods, right? So it's sort of funny to me that kind of buried in all this is like the person, like Patrizia is right kind of in the short term about the power plays, but Aldo was the one who was ultimately right about like about that business.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know so much more about the fashion world than I do, but I think that, I mean, how does Gucci make its money? It's from selling like things that
handbags.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. At the time, one thing that I think they do really well with costume in this movie, it ties into what I'm about to say. Gucci was just known for brands, like for like leather goods, accessories, and I think a lot of the time at this time more fashion brand, because we had things like Versace coming out, which was really, really trying to like market its clothing, and like other brands were trying to do that at the time, and no one was really buying Gucci because of that.
Yeah.
Gucci was what your grandma wore, essentially. I think the saying was, Versace dresses your mistress, Gucci dresses your wife, or the housewife is like the whole term. Someone correct me on that. I'm not really entirely sure. So Lady Gaga and Patrizia did not wear Gucci like clothing.
Yeah.
It was mostly accessories. But I think now, like, especially with like culture now, Gucci has kind of made its mark, especially post Tom Ford, as like more of a clothing, because like you see Billie Eilish wears a lot of Gucci, particularly. I need more hip young things. But like a lot of rappers wear Gucci like as clothing now, and at the time in the 70s and 80s and 90s that wasn't the case. It was an accessory brand. You wore a Gucci like bag or like a belt or like chains and necklaces or whatever.
Well, it seems to me like the business model that was really developed in the 90s, right, was you'd have Tom Ford or someone like Tom Ford. You would succeed at high fashion. That would cause what we used to call celebrities and what we now call influencers to wear your shit, which would then be a marketing strategy so that normal people would really want a handbag or maybe a shirt or something like that. Some sort of like a ready-to-wear piece or some accessories because of the power of the brand, which was leveraged by these high. And I mean that's part of the interesting context to the background of like the end of the movie, right? I mean, obviously Tom Ford comes in. They mention Lagerfeld, but I mean Alexander McQueen was big at this point, like this sort of new generation of designers that were kind of breathing. Like, I mean, it's sort of interesting. We're talking just after the passing of Virgil Abloh. Rest in peace, Virgil.
Oh, that's right.
Who is sort of the next generation of that? At Louis Vuitton, like you bring in these designers that constantly like revitalize the brand. So Kanye West wears your stuff, which means that some suburban kid really wants a Louis Vuitton this or an Off-White this. So it just was ironic to me that like Aldo, who's played off as being such a buffoon. I mean, Ford said he was not known as a buffoon.
Yeah,
he was known as an Italian that did tax evasion, which is, as my political science professor, my international political economy professor said, is the national sport of Italy is tax evasion.
That's true.
So it was his favorite joke. He said it all the time. See if people were awake. So I mean, like I think there's like interest. I can see, this is what's interesting about the movie to me, is I can see these pockets, right? The beginning of the relationship and kind of the development of the, who Maurizio starts at, who he becomes, what she's, this sort of ambiguous nature of what she wants from the situation. That's interesting.
Yeah.
The whole world of fashion that is sort of depicted, kind of what happened in the 90s, is very culturally interesting.
Yeah.
The murder story is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can see, like, all these pockets of it that could be extracted to, like, nice, you know, like we say, 100 minutes. Give me a 100-minute movie. That's what I want. You want to go more than 100 minutes, you got to be great. This movie's not great. Like, I can see all these pockets of, like, really interesting stuff. But then it just kind of, there's all this other stuff that,
This is ultimately the problem, is that it has so much material in it that it needed to be stretched. It either needed to be a 4-hour epic or a miniseries.
Yeah, I mean, like, what they did, I mean, I didn't watch the Versace one, but people liked that,
when
right?
I was
did you watch that one?
Yeah, I did.
I haven't watched it.
Of course I did.
Well, of course. But I mean, I think those, what is that, Crime Story, something?
Yeah.
People like those.
Yeah, when I was watching this, I was just like, I'm not really a big fan of, is it Ryan or Brian Murphy? I always, whatever.
Ryan, I'm pretty sure it's Ryan Murphy.
Ryan Murphy. I'm not like his biggest fan, but
this wants to be a Ryan Murphy product,
yeah.
and it's nowhere close.
It wants to be,
and I would say Ryan Murphy barely hits that.
And at one point, it wanted to be Succession on HBO.
Oh, Succession is brilliant.
It was really trying to be that at some point, and I was just like.
But that's that middle part where they start to get into, like, the business stuff, which is just once like really, like, the movie just kind of grinds at that point.
Like, I mean, I did not come here for the business side of Gucci. I came here for crazy shit Patrizia Reggiani actually did in real life. Like, she wasn't allowed to use the Gucci name after she got divorced, still used the name, and she was like, yeah, I'm more Gucci than those people are. Just crazy shit like that was, like, left out of the movie, and him just, like...
And even if you wanted to do the business stuff, I mean, I could imagine, like, a kind of, like, Adam McKay, like, Big Short kind of, like, concept thing. You could actually, the most Gucci thing that this movie was missing was Gucci Man, who could have come in to, like, narrate, like, a sort of a Gucci business kind of Adam McKay. Yeah. Like I said, like, the material is rich. And I agree with you. I mean, we are lovers and defenders of the cinema here. I think prestige TV is overrated, and a lot of it isn't as good as it thinks it is. But I will say, like, this may be if you wanted to do the whole thing, it definitely is a use case for a limited, whatever they call them, limited, what we used to call miniseries.
Yeah.
We used to call them celebrities, now we call them influencers. We used to call them miniseries, now we call it, like, limited run
series.
Limited run event.
Or whatever it's called, I don't know.
This movie would have benefited for more time. It would
have less time, right?
Or less time.
More or less, but not the length we got.
Yeah, it depends on what you focus on, for sure. But again, because it's so ample with what it can possibly say, what it can possibly do, I do think I agree with what you said earlier and what Thurlene said earlier, is that it needs to be an Italian filmmaker at the very least, in a foreign interpretation, because that whole movie in Italian, I think you get the joke. You get the vibe, you get the tone, you get the camp.
Yeah, I mean, this needs to be a Fellini movie.
Yeah, yes, or Paulo Sorrentino, like what he's doing these days, with like The Great Beauty, or he's got his political. He did a political one a couple of years ago, but like he's got more of an intimate movie coming out this year, which I'm sure we'll talk about on the show. But you give it to an Italian filmmaker who understands this world, understands these people, or you give it to a gay filmmaker, somebody or a woman who understands high camp, like the exaggerated form of this, or understands Patrizia, I think, as a particular character, and root it in this experience, because it was so distracted.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny is that the script is at least a little bit aware of this, because there's a line early-ish in the movie where Maurizio says, well, I've diluted the Tuscan bloodline with my German mother, right? But the problem is that, like, this doesn't feel like an Italian movie, right? It would be interesting stylistically and story-wise as well to have, like, this swirl of, like, colorful, fun-loving, brash Italianness kind of circling around Maurizio. And you get a little bit of that because he finds that he likes being around the cat-calling Italian truck drivers, right? That's what, by the way, I do think it's a great scene early in the movie where, like, she seems to really relish in being catcalled by, like, 30 dirty Italian truck cleaners, which, like, wouldn't we all love it? there are some great big group moments, like the scene when they first get to the whatever Aldo's compound, and the guys are just all beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Here's my family, guys.
It's these flashes of brilliance.
You could imagine, like I said, like if the movie had the kind of looseness and sort of joie de vivre of an Italian movie, right? And then you had this kind of, and that was sort of typified by like the kind of icier Maurizio and the more colorful Italians that surround him. Okay, once again, like I start to picture a movie that I'm like, that could be really good.
My favorite shot in the movie, it's so simple. It's when Jeremy Irons is in his backyard just sitting there waiting for Al Pacino. And I'm just like, it's a move. It's a vibe. It's a feeling. This is what I want. Yeah. And I just want to be in a smoking jacket with a scarf just sitting in my backyard looking rich and pissed.
Well, also, he Irons pulls out the only really good, like actually good scene out of the Paolo when he shows him the pictures.
Yeah.
Like that,
because
so there the contrast of it works. Right?
Yeah.
There the ridiculousness of Paolo contrasted with
the reservation.
Rodolfo, yeah, that works. Like, that works as a scene.
Yeah.
And it actually has, like, dramatic tension because you know what's going to happen, but Paolo doesn't know. And it's a great moment where it's like, don't show these to anyone ever.
Show those to everyone. I loved Paolo's designs.
I mean, but it's like once again, like, because you have the scene is grounded in something, right? As opposed to like the scenes with Pacino and Leto that just like are just so, they're just like, they might as well have shot those in outer fucking space, like for as real as they felt, right? I mean, those scenes would have been no less absurd if they had dressed them up as like adult babies, right? I mean, it is so out there and so ridiculous.
It is strange,
right? That it didn't even have the kind of tension. Like, I don't know. I have vanishingly few opinions about Jared Leto as an actor. Al Pacino obviously looms very large from my youth, but I think we could say that he is more of a scenery chewer than a.
I mean, that's what this whole movie was.
You know, he's come a long way from his days as Michael Corleone.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, he stopped
Frank
being
Serpico.
He stopped being a reserved, tender actor. Post like early 1980s. I mean, once and A Scent of a Woman kind of solidified it.
Yeah, Scent of a Woman is definitely the blueprint for the
modern Pacino.
The somewhat less fecund second act of Al Pacino.
Because it's so different. It's so different to see him in like Scarecrow.
Yeah, he's become like Christopher Walken.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And Panic at Needle
but
Park.
He's become like a guy who you're like, that's what I want.
Yeah,
and it can work. It can work in kind of a like it works in Irishman, it works in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because he's a supporting character, because he's kind of playing a larger than life character in those movies. And I guess this guy's supposed to be larger than life, but it gets so broad that it just becomes wild. It's surreal. Yeah. Like, you can't, like, and it's so at odds with, like I said, the very sort of static and not very interesting way that Ridley Scott is going to shoot the movie.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
which is just very.
It's got a polish.
Like I said, it's professional.
Yeah, it looks nice.
It looks good, but
Darius Wolski shot it. It looks pristine.
But it doesn't have, like I said, like Ridley Scott he's not an auteur. He doesn't have he just doesn't. I don't know what to say about him, right? Because obviously, like, we love Blade Runner. We love the first Alien movie. I think is spectacular.
It's fantastic.
I have to be reminded of his.
Yeah,
movies he made.
I even like some things like White Squall. Like, I mean, he's a good filmmaker.
Yeah.
But
this was not his movie.
He's like this last decade. He's sort of lost away. I mean, ever since his Robin Hood, it almost seems like it has just veered off of a wild direction. And I have never really loved a film that he has done ever since. Like, and I didn't even love American Gangster. So maybe Gladiator is like the last like kind of great piece of cinema because it was an ode to that sword and sandal genre, and he did it magnificently well as a technician. And the story was there, the dynamics of character were there, the acting was there for everyone at the peak. You know, Joaquin Phoenix emerging. You have Russell Crowe at like one of his peak levels.
But when but I mean, who's really in his comparison group, right? I mean, Spielberg, right?
Yeah.
Who has much more of a his movies, for better or worse, really bear his imprint.
Yeah,
like much more than Ridley Scott's did.
I think so.
Do. I mean, you know, when you think about like these kind of post, I mean, he's in that sort of post. Kind of Hollywood 70s golden age cohort, right? With people who direct
Ron Howard comes to mind.
Big spectacles, Ron Howard. Yeah, people who seem to keep on getting the ability to direct pretty big movies, right? Howard, to me, those two are very similar.
Yeah.
Not so much in the work they choose to do, but the fact that their movies just, they don't, like, they don't have a kind of a vision to them.
No.
I mean,
really.
even like even George Lucas, right? Is, you know, his movies bear sort of, like I said, sometimes for the worse, kind of more of his DNA.
Yeah,
right.
It's true.
I mean, to me, that's the thing is, like, with great filmmakers, their movies bear their DNA.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and you sense their presence, right? And I can't say that's the case for Ridley Scott's movies.
No.
I don't think they have
not even his best works is not necessary. He was making them in service of what needs to be told. I mean, that's always been what his career is.
Yeah, although maybe The Rejoinder is like, you know, that's maybe he's an old school director. He'd say, well, that's what about John Ford, right?
He's like a Michael Curtiz. He's like a William Wyler.
Yeah, what about all these people? You know, we have this sort of you know, I mean, I guess for nerds, right, like everybody wants to be, you know, either Orson Welles or Jean-Luc Godard or Agnes Varda, right? They want to be these people who have this, or Fellini, right? Mm-hmm. They want to have this distinct vision and
tone. Yeah, I mean, because, I mean, that is what's missing, I think, when we talk about it being either an Italian or to submit itself to camp or a vision.
Yeah.
Because in Italian film, I mean, even beyond Fellini, you have Visconti, you have like Death in Venice. I mean, that is campy. I mean, you have this tone, this submission to tone, a dedication to tone that this movie fails to submit to, and so so that's why it flails. It just flails back and forth into these elements, and you cannot grip. And there's moments of absurdity. There's moments of camp. I think Leto is in the spectrum of almost
fat bastard,
delving into something absurdly offensive. But I think Lady Gaga found the right.
They should let Gaga play all the roles, Austin Powers style.
Yeah, that's a movie. But like Lady Gaga, I think.
Sign me up.
Sign me up right
now. Who doesn't watch?
I want the Gaga version of this movie right now. Release it. I will direct it.
If they do a Austin Powers or a Nutty Professor with Gaga.
Yeah,
as all the Gucci's.
As all of them, every character.
It might, but see that would submit itself to a vision and tone that I think suits this in that on the nose satire that pushes it to a level that is entertaining. That otherwise this doesn't necessarily do the entire time. I think Lady Gaga understood the movie she was in. I think she anchors a lot of the movie, and its mistake is leaving her.
Yeah,
its mistake is leaving her behind for some stuff that again. You can look to Succession. You can look to these other movies that do the business satire incredibly well. And so, for me, this movie just needed to choose a direction, and instead it flails. And for me, it's languid. It lurches. It's hard to watch. Even though there are flashes of brilliance, either from whatever. Maybe it's just because the story is so wild and weird. And some of the performances fit, as Ben said, the dynamic between Jeremy Irons and Jared Leto works versus, you know, putting Aldo and Paulo in the same room almost does nothing for the movie. It just is strange and weird. So for me, the movie could have been something great, and it's just funny. We'll go back to the opening. It's like it's a bad movie that's watchable.
Yeah, a bad watchable
It's
movie
weird because
that I love.
but I don't think I would ever watch it again.
Oh, I will watch this again.
I don't know if I can.
I will watch. I mean, I want.
You should make like a Thurlene cut, like the old like recut episode ones, like do a Thurlene cut.
I want to do this movie like what's that movie called? It's escaping Rocky Horror Picture Show style, or like The Room style, where everyone's just audience participation, and you're just like
what they were doing with Cats, at, like
yeah,
the draft house.
Something like I want something like that with this movie.
House of Gucci. So it's long. It's a long
I don't fucking
movie.
Yeah, you need the Thurlene cut for that. For the fun-loving screening.
If you can develop an in-theater response, like audience participation, where I don't know, where she's like, father, son, and House of Gucci, and everyone like says like amen or something. I don't know, whatever it is.
I will do it. Talent accepted.
Someone who's more creative than I can concoct this in-theater experience.
It's funny because we haven't even talked about the kind of insane way that this movie deploys popular music. Right, in all kinds of weirdly dissonant ways. And even the end where they do that insane, like, mashup, Italian-English mashup of Fast Car by Tracy Chapman in a way that is just, like, it just sort of, like, I just felt like Ridley Scott should have come on the screen and made, like, the wanker gesture, right? Just to show us.
It is
yeah, fuck you people. I can do whatever I want.
Bring up the soundtrack. The whole movie tone, although the movie that I'm going to compare it to, tonally submitted to itself and made more sense than this movie. But the soundtrack reminded me of this. Is I, Tonya. I, Tonya is a very similar story. It's about hiring these dopes to
Jeff Gillooly,
another great woman being taken down by the white man. Honestly,
one of my favorite forgotten. There was a real golden age there for like weird buffoons, right? Like Jeff Gillooly, Joey Buttafuoco. I just think of these people, right? Who, these kind of footnote to history people. I'm always fascinated by them.
Yeah.
People who had one moment of where they burned bright.
Yeah.
They burned bright in the popular consciousness.
Fuck Jeff.
Maybe Juicy Smollett will be that person
who
goes on trial today.
That's a story that deserves the king.
Oh, I think that'll be made into a movie.
That would be.
I mean,
give it 10 years. I'm here.
I think that's a movie. It's funny, him and Ghislaine Maxwell starting trials on the same day. We are really living on a magical age.
We are
here. Well, what's I mean, just what a bizarre movie.
Very bizarre, but again, there are things I do like about this movie.
I'm so much of the movies we've watched. Yeah,
I mean, again, like you said earlier, its problem was that it veered away from Patrizia, which I personally thought it was gonna be a movie about her. Again, she is the most interesting person in this fucking story, and like I
think that's the point. It's the point that she's an outsider and she's more interesting and capable and has vision. Well, everybody else is just lost in this legacy that they have no identity.
She's a great character, right? I did a series of conversations about new Adam Curtis documentary, Can't Get You Out of My Head, and there's Mao's wife, Zhang Qing, is very similar to Patrizia. You get these very compelling, very gray characters who sort of start out in a place that may be good or is at least understandable, and then go to these very dark places, right? Because of kind of the situation they're put in. Those are great characters, right? Because they defy easy categorization as sort of goodies and baddies, right? Yes. She's a very compelling character, right? And yes, she is ill-served by the material.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think so.
By the decisions. I mean, so I think, yes, I enjoyed this movie so much more than like a lot of like Eternals and all these other movies that are just dishwater dull, right? But here's the thing. But I do think it suffers from a similar problem, right? Which is that I think we're getting to this age of like the disease of more in Hollywood, where like all movies are either like small independent movies or these huge big budget like juggernauts, right? There's really not a lot of middle ground. This would have been a great movie to be like in some middle ground, the way that like rom-coms and adult dramas used to be. But those movies are consigned to independent film now, and every big movie is like a giant, 50 million, 100 million. Every movie is either small or big, and this movie's big. And the problem with big movies is that you have this disease of more where they just did too much. They had too much money. They could do too many setups. They could go to too many locations. They could hire too many actors that you've heard of before. It was all just too much.
Too much.
Get one great actor to play Patrizia.
Isn't that what luxury is? Just too much?
Yeah, but I would like the luxury of enjoying it. That's the luxury I'm looking for. It's the luxury of pleasure. Right? And like my luxury of pleasure was mediated by the bloat, right? The bloat. These movies just Eternal's the same thing. It just bloats, right? Just bloats and bloats and bloats because they have too much money to make this movie. And so they make a thing that has a bunch of shit in it that they're like, oh, well, we did this scene with these two big-time actors, and we got this great costumes, and we got this amazing set, and we spent a week shooting in this beautiful location. Okay. We got to use this footage.
You mentioned costumes. May I just briefly...
Oh, yes. No, please.
You're a costume expert.
Okay. Because I think... I told both of you, I think one of my issues with... I have a theory. I'm not 1,000% sure, but a friend who works for Gucci now, think that they used modern pieces, like from the 2000s, in this movie that takes place in the 90s, 80s, and 70s.
Mm-hmm. We need to do like a conspiracy style YouTube video with you like circling things on the screen.
It's right there. It's a theory. I'm
going
not
frame by frame.
Here's the thing. I did not work on the I am not the costume designer of this movie. I did not work on this movie. I cannot confirm this, but I did read interviews with the costume designer. At first, I was really angry about the idea that they use modern pieces, and I still am a little bit angry if they did that. But also, they did have access to the Gucci archives for this movie pre-Tom Ford. Mind, because most of the Gucci archive is pre-Tom Ford. Mm-hmm. And the costume designer even said we went to the Gucci Museum in Florence and yada, 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 which is all great. It's all good. However, in the interview, they were like, oh, did you use pieces from the Gucci archive? And they said, we only used it for 2 outfits that Lady Gaga wore. And which made me go, huh. Interesting. You had access to all this shit. And you clearly did your research. And you're just going to use 2 items. And they pulled a bunch. They were like, yeah, we pulled so many items. They were under lock and key in our hotel. Blah, blah, blah. But we only used like it in 2 scenes. And I'm just like, this is a movie about vintage Gucci.
Do you think there's an irony to that choice? That they are dressing them in the ultimate... denial of what their future is going to be, that the future is not them and they're dressing them in what ultimately will not be theirs?
Ooh.
They should have dressed them in derelict.
That would be
that would have been real powerful.
I mean, that's a very particular. I mean, I might be giving them more credit because
I think you're giving them more credit.
I mean, but it's interesting though, right? Because the whole movie is about them losing the family business, losing their legacy. It goes into other people's hands. Mm-hmm. They're using modern pieces that do not define the family idea of Gucci, and yet they had access to the archive. They had access to these things
to everything,
to dress them and to accessorize them. I feel it might be a mean-spirited choice to do that.
It's a stupid choice if that's what they did. Personally
speaking,
I
feel like
it's
the best.
And again, there are great things about the costume design in this movie. I think there are great moments. I love how when she's seducing Maurizio, she's very demure. She's wearing like sweater sets, and it's very cutesy. And then when she finally like gets into the family, she's like, "Look at me, I'm in YSL. Mm-hmm. I'm wearing Dior, and look at all my crazy accessories." I feel like the accessory game was lacking because Patrizia was known for crazy, insane accessories. I felt like they should have done more. I mean, they did a lot. She never repeats anything in this movie. Like, she never repeats an accessory, never repeats an outfit. I think same with Adam Driver, never repeats. Maybe he wears the Gucci belt twice, mm-hmm. but
the ring. I think he has the ring.
Yeah, just stuff like that. But
he's also supposed to be on the exterior of this business. The only reason he kind of comes in and takes over is because of Patrizia. Like, he has no interest until she's like,
let's do this. Let's do
pushing
this,
him
baby.
into the fold, pushing him back into the family. It is again, there are interesting dynamics. Obviously, this is a very interesting story, and I think that's what's so compelling about it. But it does sort of, again, I'm gonna just keep saying it's flails, and I can't like grip onto one or multiple things that they're trying.
I will say, on an autobiographical note, that this movie did nevertheless. I've always had a desire to be fashionable that this movie tapped into. I'm not myself fashionable.
Did it make you want to be fashionable?
What I will say is I did go home.
Are we going to the Gucci store?
In a fit of pique and a desire to be fashionable, bought myself a Comme des Garçons wallet that I'd been wanting to get. Very iconic wallet. I was like, well, I'm gonna have one fashionable thing in my life.
Are we all just going to the Gucci store and?
I mean, quite frankly,
Gucci?
like in terms of like nice stuff, I would say that Gucci is not necessarily to my aesthetic, even amongst like the luxury items.
Disappointing.
Are you more of a Dior, a Chanel, Louis Vuitton?
I mean, are we talking clothes? What are we talking here?
Anything.
Actually, no. I did see a long coat, like a long Gucci coat. That had kind of a 70s vibe to it that I thought was really nice, and that if I had a free $2,600, I would have considered buying.
Yeah, if I had more money, I definitely see. This is the thing. I don't have a lot of excuses to go dressing up. Thurlene would say you make excuses. I'm going to just already answer it for you there. But
you could be in your house and you could dress up. What are you talking about?
No, I mean, you can make excuses, but I like the idea of going out to a nice dinner and wearing a suit. But it's like I don't have that expendable cash. Like I just don't.
We'll get you a suit, buddy. You're gonna make a bunch of money on this thing. We'll get you a suit.
Yeah, we'll get you a suit. We'll get you a three-piece suit.
But I mean, like, men's fashion is kind of boring, right? I mean, compared to.
I mean, I like,
is it?
No, I like
think
the variations of colors and suits.
I mean,
and shirts
I think
and ties.
men's fashion is less interesting than women's fashion.
That's true.
I personally don't believe in men or women's fashion. It is just fashion.
It's just fashion.
You can wear whatever you want.
Fashion.
Yeah, but I don't like in terms of like what looks well. So this is great. This is going to get into more interesting territory. Like my position, which I hope you'll refute, or at least comment on, is that like in terms of like what looks good on men, like a really nice, like, well-tailored suit, I don't know that that's been improved upon.
No, I feel like it's, if anything, it's declined. Personally, there's not. I mean, I feel like the best time for suits for men was like the '60s. That was a good time for suits for men. Was the '60s.
But I'm just saying that, like, if you get like a good, like, look at the way like the like when you see the actual Tom Ford like in a tuxedo, like that's a good look. That's a good men's look.
I mean, he's a good-looking man.
He's a good-looking guy, but I mean, what I'm saying is, like, but like, I mean, but the thing is, like, a suit will, like, a good blazer, a well-cut blazer, right? It'll make most people look good. Like, even so, like a a big guy like me, right? If it's cut well, it'll sort of, it kind of smooths over the parts of you and makes you look places where you might want people to look as opposed to not look. Although I just did hear John Waters in an interview say a funny thing about how you stay looking good when you're old. He said you put something funny looking on your head and on your feet, and they just kind of ignore everything in the middle. So I feel like that's where my life is probably heading.
Do it. I want you to up your hat.
To another
game.
John. I mean, my head's too big. I look fucking stupid heads.
No.
But I'm just saying, like, I feel like, women can go in a lot of more different directions
Versatile.
more easily, and there's a lot of different looks that may or may not work for specific women, whereas versus like with men, I feel like a good suit,
that's it.
I won't say that's it.
A crop top, a skirt, a kilt,
but like
some really like nice shoes.
But I was like, even like the streetwear thing, I feel is a little played out to me. Like Like, I mean, how many, like, of a certain kind of hoodie can you see out?
A nice romper.
I mean, a jumpsuit, yeah. I mean, of course, yeah. And if you're gorge, right, you can pull it all off.
Yeah.
And look good. But I just don't know that, like, I feel like men express themselves with, like, a fun tie, right? Like, like, do you go with a more of a basic tie?
Nice
shoes. Yeah, you get some nice shoes. But even then, like
That gets really boring.
Yeah, like a basic like Oxford shoe, right? I mean, it's get a nice one, get a well made one, right? I mean, get them in. You get a black one, you get a brown one, maybe you get a kind of a burgundy Cordovan thing. Yeah, that's it. You got it.
Well,
game over.
See, I think that's where like men's fashion fails, because I feel like when we because I personally don't think clothing has gender. Like, I don't think this is specifically for men and this is specifically for women. And I feel like most people think this is for boys and this is for girls. Blah, blah, blah. Men can only wear suits. I feel like if men were just like ventured out a little more to like clothes that are traditionally for women.
But Thurlene, that's like this Crypto.com commercial with Matt Damon. Fortune favors the brave. I don't think most men are brave when it comes to their fashion choices. They like comfortable.
And they
that's our second totally unrelated Matt Damon reference.
But they should be. Like, it's not that hard to be, especially in LA. It really isn't that hard.
Yeah, I mean, you can go ass out in this town, nobody will think twice.
Yeah, that's true.
Go out and wear some chaps. I don't fucking know.
That was a nice butt reveal. There were a couple nice butt moments. Lady Gaga gets a lovely butt moment. Mm-hmm. And then in the fashion show, you get a male butt moment, male surprise butt.
Speaking of,
two surprise butts in the movie, which we're into. We haven't even talked about the sex scene.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Where Adam Driver fucks her at a rate that no human has ever achieved before.
What is the better sex scene, Eternals or this?
Oh, this was much better.
See, I mean, both.
I mean, Icarus is like a 2-pump chump, right? I mean, he's like boom, boom, done.
Both.
Adam Driver literally, he has he's running at 80 pumps a minute. He's only like the Sibian or like some advanced sex machine is going at a higher rate than Adam Driver.
There's the spectrum of sex scenes, isn't it? It's this one is so tame and and again believable in a sense, but then you get to this level and you're like, what is happening?
I was just like, is this? I looked at Gutierrez because I was just like, what is happening, Goody? What are we doing? And I just started.
David's jacked. I mean, maybe he can go.
Maybe he can. Is this normal?
I mean, maybe I'm telling on myself, but like I just felt like that speed. That rate was just not attainable.
Like this.
I mean, you'd have to be like you'd have to be vibrating like someone like someone with a tremor.
At first, I thought she was like
maybe he's having like an.
I thought she was like hitting her heels against something as they were like fucking, but I was like, is he just? That's not normal. Never.
Obviously, it's the extreme. That was supposed to be a camp moment.
But I thought that the whole sequence, that how she loves being catcalled, and then like that whole opening scene, everything that happens at maybe the trucking area is some sort of like a weird fantasia, like they don't. That's a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Because, like, they have the funny, like, spraying each other with water, very Zoolander moment, right? Where the guys are just frolicking with each other. I was hoping... Yeah, I mean, there was, like, homoerotic energy that didn't even get really paid off in an interesting way. But, yes, I mean, just like that's like, bah, 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 bah. I was just like, no, I mean...
I feel like
I don't know if I should feel bad. I felt strange.
No.
It wouldn't hurt?
No, that would not hurt. I mean...
I just think it would be too fast to even comprehend.
Yeah, to comprehend.
I feel like
it's like how they drill your teeth with a high-speed drill. It spins so fast you can't feel it.
Men, that is now the new standard for sex. Get
to
work. I'm just gonna pull out a stopwatch and just
it's like how many,
go to town.
It's like you're taking someone's pulse. Like how many beats per minute are you going? How many? If
I don't feel like I'm sitting on a washing machine. Yes. I don't want it.
It was faster than any.
I don't want it.
Washing machine that's on like a fucking roller coaster, right? I mean, like, I was just like, whoa, because the whole movie is just like
it doesn't feel like
weird.
Disneyland. I don't want it.
It's so weird that you're like watching it. It starts out like very like just a
normal
sex scene. They're grabbing each other.
He's picking her up. She's tiny.
We've seen this all before.
Oh yeah, that's so normal.
Yeah, we've seen this and then all of a sudden we go to like that. But that's a great metaphor for the movie, right? You go from like things that are kind of normal to things that are just like really wild.
And
like I was just like, whoa. So in a way, that's like the perfect scene.
It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
It's my second favorite scene in the movie.
She's wearing some pretty wild underwear for work. I just gotta say.
Is that
These are
wild?
Italians.
Yeah,
These are
is that-
Italians.
Is that wild?
They're
I feel like
Italians.
for work?
She's
For
Italian.
the 80s? I feel like that's
she's wearing
fairly...
lingerie all the time.
Yeah.
She's
I
a
mean,
sexy. She's an Italian.
She's curvy,
She's thirsty.
she's-
She loves life.
She's vivacious.
What I'm saying, like, is that's like fun. Like, oh yeah, she's always wearing hot lingerie. She's always ready to get it in.
Always.
That's why we love her. That's just why she's full of life. She's full of it. You know.
And
she's
then
just,
and then he just leaves her for that horse, which is my favorite.
Well, that's
line.
very mean.
that's your Camilla Parker Bowles.
That's what she says. She calls her a
She
horse.
does call her that, yeah.
Is that a prosthetic on Diane Kruger's nose?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Because
absolutely.
I was just like, I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah, she is a Camilla.
She's the Camilla Parker Bowles.
She is a
of this.
Camilla. Fuck
Yeah.
that bitch and fuck that bitch
Well,
too.
he did.
I mean, absolutely. The true villain of the story is Maurizio. Piece of shit. I hate that man so much.
He only got where he was going to go because of her, and without her, he was going to fail. And,
Yeah.
And ultimately,
Maybe we can get her on the pod.
Who? Lady Gaga?
Patricia.
Patricia.
Honestly, we probably would be able to. I mean, I feel like she's someone who just really would.
I'll
would
reach
do
out to my
anything.
Italian
Please
contact.
do,
Let's say hi.
dude. I would melt if I ever met that. Because again, I love her.
That's
Her and Tanya Harding
We're gonna
are my
fake. We're gonna
babies.
fake that you have a terminal disease, and it'll be your make a wish.
She faked
Just
that
to-
she had a tumor, and that's why she planned the assassin.
That's great. That's great.
She blamed it on a
Amazing.
tumor that she had. Again, there's so many things about her that are left out of
true queen.
that are left out of the movie because I know what she did is awful. I get that, but also, bitch had it coming. I'm sorry, it's not really. I mean, he cheats on her, but no. Okay, they were very much in love. They have 2 children, and then he says he's going away on a business trip.
That's how it goes.
And then the next day after that, his lawyer comes and says he wants a divorce.
Motherfucker.
Again, I wanted more of Jack Houston. I wanted more of that.
He was
interplay.
funny because he was like the way he describes himself was also his role in the movie. Like his role in the character's role in the family was his role in the movie, which is like one normal motherfucking guy.
Yeah.
Just like a normal dude who's just like not constantly being like just wilding out, you know?
Yeah.
He was definitely the straight man in this movie. Like he was the one who was like, so we need one sort of normal person to occasionally pop in to keep this thing from just floating into the abyss. Right?
Yeah.
You do it, lawyer man.
Lawyer man, be the straight man in this movie. Yeah, Maurizio had it coming. He's a piece of shit. He couldn't get anywhere without that woman by his side.
Right.
And
Preach.
he got what he deserved.
This is how I expected to feel at the end of this. I'm ready to take a nap.
Yeah.
I feel exhausted by engaging with the House of Gucci.
Yeah, I think we.
I'm gonna take a nap in that house.
I think we've
at this point.
expressed ourselves quite well on House of Gucci. I think it's a very uneven movie, and it will depend on what you bring to it. I think, and what you latch onto based off your enjoyment. And so, I mean, for me, is it worth seeing? Oddly, yes.
It is a unique film going experience.
Yeah, I mean, as I think comparing it to the onslaught of just regular bloated budget pictures that come out, I mean, it's at least more interesting. It's at least more interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's bloated in, honestly, the right ways because it has so much to talk about, but they don't talk about it sufficiently enough, and so that's ultimately the problem. But it is kind of wild at certain points. You get a spectrum of good, relatively okay accents to abysmal. You get performances that just careen into madness, such as Jared Leto, which it's again Super Mario Brothers is apt. You put
Fat Bastard meets Super Mario.
You put some red overalls on that man, and he is
it's
Mario.
Me, Paolo.
I mean, really, Paolo Gucci, Jared Leto as Paolo Gucci should be voicing Super Mario, not Chris Pratt. Like that's ultimately.
He's not even doing an Italian accent for that movie.
Oh
He says
my God.
he's using his normal voice.
That is. Let's talk about that later because
Anti-Italian
there's too much to
sentiment.
break down and what's wrong with that. Anyways, But and then you have some reservation. Jeremy Irons. It's such an interesting movie with all of its flaws, all of its messiness, all of its weirdness, that it's worth seeing if that's what people are looking to hear from this. But I also think that ultimately it will suffer from, I think, even rewatches unless Thurlene develops the perfect in-house entertainment that functions as a complementary piece to the madness that is this movie.
Or
which
just
I think
watch
will
it
help.
with me. I think
Or yeah.
just
that's
watch
probably
it. David
enjoyable.
said the movie, it was better because he watched it with me
Yeah,
because
that
of
helps.
my.
Yeah.
So yeah, just watch it. Just call me up and watch House of Gucci with me, and you'll like the movie better.
I think that's fair. Any other thoughts on House of Gucci around the table? Couch, I should say.
Go see it. Don't take it too seriously. Just have
Definitely.
try to
I don't
have
think
fun
you
with
can.
it. Try to have fun with it. Yeah, just try to have fun watching this movie.
Ben, any last words?
Amen.
Yeah, amen.
Father, Son,
Amen.
and House
Father,
of Gucci.
Son, House of Gucci. Amen.
Bless it up.
So that was great. Well, Thurlene, thanks for coming on and being our first guest.
Thank you for having
Are you
me.
gonna high five me?
Oh,
Are you gonna
I
leave me
didn't.
hanging?
I didn't see you. I was facing this way.
No, I know you've been facing that way the entire time, and it's fine.
Looking at myself.
Yeah, I mean you're just keeping an eye on the camera.
Yeah.
I guess we'll do another. I mean, this will come out today. For Monday the 29th, but because that's when we're recording it, but it will come out today, and Ben and I will try and return this week to discuss Licorice Pizza.
That's right.
Ooh.
Which and then next week, I think we'll probably only do one episode next week, even though there's a bunch of weird stuff coming out. But the following week we might try and do 2 again. So it's coming up. I mean, we're coming into
Mark
movie
your
season.
calendars.
Mark your calendars. I think next week we're going to talk Wolf. And maybe Paul Verhoeven's Benedetta, if we can find it, and because I hear some wild things about that movie. I'm looking forward to that. And then the following week, I mean, what is it? West Side Story. We got
Rest in
Red
peace, Steven
Rocket.
Sondheim,
We got
by the
Red
way.
Rocket coming out on the 10th. So I mean, we're gonna talk about all those. So Thurlene, thanks for coming on.
Thank you
for
Thurlene.
having me.
Yeah, thanks
our
for
pleasure.
coming. And yeah, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.